What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another review for you. And kind of running the gamut here because we've done a full length, we've done an EP, now we're doing a split. So we're going to go over the recent split between Diabolic Oath and Aberration called Divinations. This also comes out on the 5th of January on Sentient Ruin Laboratories. As for the band's Diabolic Oath, formed in 2017 in Portland, Oregon. We reviewed their last EP, which I still think might be a made-up word. I can't say it. It begins with an A and ends in an A, and there are letters in between. While the band is completely anonymous, I know they feature members of Shroud of the Heretic and former members of Blood Freak, and they have really cool names like Chthonian and Cursor, Ominous Void, and The Temple. And they won't even tell you which instruments they play. It's all unknown. And as for Aberration, they formed in 2020 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We actually saw them at Heavy Hell last year, and they share members with another band we saw at Heavy Hell and a band that was on both of our year-end lists, Nothingness. And we were really psyched to hear this one, namely because we know both bands, and granted we've only seen one of them, but we've liked what we've heard.
Yep.
And this is a pretty short offering, I'll admit that. It is only 15 minutes. It is just one track for each one. Aberration has Divinations of Flesh, and Diabolic Oath has Divinations of Wrath. And both of these bands pretty much kind of stick to that dissonant death metal style. Like, of course, there's a lot of nods to like Incantation, because it's very cavernous and raw sounding, but also bands like The Ominous Circle and Devoid of Thought, Replicant, stuff that, just kind of lays on the distance, creates a lot of atmosphere, a lot of droning tremolos. It's cold and icy, but dense and thick, and kind of sounds like there's a fog hovering over the entire split. It's just murky sounding, but in a good way.
Yeah, very foggy, very murky, just low-hanging clouds hanging over everything, and it stays there. Dissonant and dark and just about as like evil as you can make it sound while still keeping a level of cohesion.
Yeah, surprisingly tuneful, and that's like both of these. And my experience with both is, they are just heavier than hell and more maybe focused on the atmosphere than necessarily riffs, but even that kind of changes on here. The first one is Aberration's Divinations of Flesh, and this is blasty, dissonant, it's murky as hell, very cavernous. The vocals definitely have a John McEntee sort of flair to them, especially on the higher gurgles. You get that, which is very effective. But this song is just nasty, dark sounding. It kind of has like a little bit of a blackened edge, but despite it being very dissonant, there's a really good melody to it.
And that melody carries at least the first portion of the song, where it's notably faster. The drums are nuts, everything's a blast beat, everything just, again, it sounds like chaos held together by this kind of loose melody.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. There are some moments where they kind of break up the riff. There's some cool chuggy accents in it. But when it gets down to this section where kind of everything drops out, there's like these accented drums and like just sort of droning feedback that's kind of in the background. Then you get into this giant Death Doom breakdown, and it is heavier than hell. You can hear the extra reverb on the drums. It just sounds massive, and what I really like about this breakdown is they slow it down with like each increment. With each measure, it gets a little bit slower for a while. And honestly, this band sounds even more sinister and dark when they slow down. Like, it is just darkness. It is just staring into the void and, maybe getting greeted by a couple of riffs.
Yeah. And when it slows down too, they change out that melody for a bunch of atonal harmonies. So it sounds even more unhinged and a lot more just kind of disorienting.
Yeah, and then they go right back into that main riff and then get a little bit chuggier and more aggressive towards the end. Like, kind of like some more brutal, death metal chugging. Because a lot of their song kind of feels a little bit more on the black metal side, which is not a complaint because they do it really well. But yeah, this opening track absolutely slays.
And then, of course, we get to the second track on here and the last track, Divinations of Wrath by Diabolic Oath. Again, evil, dark, blackened, and murky. Seems to be the tone for both of these songs. But this, I think, is probably one of the most cohesive and or even listenable tracks that Diabolic Oath has put forth.
I would have to agree. Like, we went over their last EP, and I have like a threshold when it comes down to like dissonance, and they kind of hit that. Like, it was just a little bit too much. This one, while it still remains just murky and dissonant and, you know, kind of atonal, there are some excellent riffs on here. It's kind of like a meeting between like a band like Ascended Dead, but also like there's a lot of like classic Morbid Angel in there. The vocals are layered and kind of doing a back and forth thing, because I think two of them are doing vocals. You have higher screams and then lower growls, but again, there's like so much reverb on it. So where one starts and the other one comes in, it's just this big layered effect, like, you know, two demons yelling at each other in a cavern.
And it's more riffy. Diabolic Oath in the past, again, has focused on more things like dissonance and just making a wall of, you know, sonically disturbing noise. In this case, it's more chuggy. I even thought that at times in the beginning, after you get through the murky dissonance, it sounded like a dying fetus riff. Like, it's almost like a brutal death riff.
There's still a lot of cool, like, blackened melodies in there, too. Again, it does get, like, atonal, but it's, again, like, oddly catchy this time. It doesn't come across as something that is just done for atmosphere. Like, there's an intent with, like, some melody. And there's some really cool drum work on this song in particular, especially when they get down to, like, those later sections. There's some cool, like, accented fills and, like, kind of almost like a jazzy drum pattern for a little bit before breaking into, like, a stomping groove.
And to complement that, you have this really cool fuzzy bass break. Now, I know the bassist is playing a fretless bass, which really works out, but like, there's so much going on by way of melody, and it's coming from the bass.
Yeah, and the bass is very prominent in the mix, and that might have to do with the fact that Colin Marston actually did the mastering on their side, which, I mean, if you want like dissonant, atonal, and, you know, well mixed, he's kind of one of those guys to get a hold of. The thing that I really like about Diabolic Oath's song, and what kind of makes it like the big standout, or at least like the big surprise for me, is the amount of dynamics packed into it. Like, the song moves around a lot. You get a lot of, again, like the dissonant death metal that you expect, but also, again, the classic death metal. There's even some Death Doom moments in there where they slow it down to just these big, swampy, droning riffs, and some really good, like, kind of creepy melodic hooks. And again, death metal melodic hooks, like, it's like, oh, that's really pretty and pleasant. No, it's not. But it's very catchy to people that, you know, look for like really cool hooks in death metal.
Yeah.
And I think the production works well on each one. I don't know who did the production on Aberration side, but it sounds, again, cavernous and just sort of dark and sinister sounding. And the same with Diabolic Oath, though I think with the layered vocal approach, there's just a little bit more atmosphere in terms of those weird haunting vocal trade-offs. Like, the groans and moans toward the end especially really just kind of make it sound extra evil.
In the end, I think the point of this split was just to bring out some nasty, heavy, evil music. And they did just that. It's dissonant, it's dark, it's black, it's bleak, it sounds disturbing, and that was the point. Overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars, mostly because it's just 2 tracks. I think had there been more to it, you know, I could have latched onto it a little bit better, but they were both entertaining in their own right, and I think they do well in contrast to one another. Like, Aberrations is just definitely more dissonant and really putting forth more of an atmospheric approach to the music, whereas Diabolic Oath, for a change, still has that dark, dissonant flavor to it, but it's got a lot more going on as far as melody and hooks and groove and something a little bit more to latch onto. I mean, they're both really good songs. I can't wait to hear what comes next from both these bands, but as far as just offering a tasty little split, they did a good job, so 3 stars for me.
I'm at 3.5, honestly. Granted, I would almost call this like a sampler. I mean, both songs are definitely longer, and they have, you know, like a little bit more in the way of dynamics. But at the same time, it's a very short offering. It's only about 15 minutes, but I think both did exceedingly well. Aberration kind of did what I expected from them. I've jammed them on YouTube because they don't have any CDs. Anyway, but I really like their style, and they impressed the living hell out of me live. Like, they were one of the best bands in heavy hell.
Agreed.
Flat out. I like their just caustic, evil, dark sound, and they know how to find like good melodies within the dissonance. But Diabolic Oath's side impressed me the most just because they kind of stepped outside of what they usually do, where at least that last EP was very chaotic and dissonant and just very much along the lines of Ascended Dead, which, believe me, Ascended Dead's just absolutely nuts. But this one showcasing a little bit more in their wheelhouse, like the old school death metal tropes and the death doom breakdowns and some spots of melody that don't come across as like just like, oh, we're trying to make it pretty. It still sounds dark and sinister and brooding and evil and all the good things that I like about death metal. But I think there's just kind of more to their song overall. But I think both are excellent, and again, both of these kind of work as like a sampler for hopefully what is to come. And again, if you're a big fan of bands like Incantation, Immolation, Devoid of Thought, I would even say Gorguts to a degree too, check this out. This is a gnarly split. I'm not sure what is available as far as physical media. Is it?
It's digital, and then there's a 7-inch vinyl pressing.
Okay, so I don't get a CD. I'm okay with that, I guess. I'm not. I'm never okay with that. Anyway, go check this band out. Check out both bands in terms of their back catalog, too, because they're both absolutely awesome. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsofmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, thrallsmetal.com is exactly where to find it. We have shirts. We have old shirts at a discounted price, and we have hats. So, if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
And as always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal. There just is. We've always got stuff going on. Reviews. We're going to do some retro reviews. What's John Jammin is making a return, finally. Yeah, tons of things going on, but we couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you to everyone who's continued to show up and be a part of our lives. And you've let us be a part of your lives, and that's really cool. Thank you for that.
We're definitely judging you. I mean, you're making some poor choices, but at least it's kind of benefiting us.
Yes, and we enjoy that. Yeah, just once again, you guys rule, and yeah.
Yeah, you guys could do better, but we're glad you don't. That should be our tagline, but we have like several other dumb taglines that I think we have too. But yeah, we appreciate every ounce of support, and we're looking forward to seeing what this year brings. I'm looking forward to more adventures and more awesome releases, and telling you guys all about it here on the channel. So thank you all, and we will catch you later.